Welcome to GBIRL, the podcast looking at the real business world of esports, gaming, and streaming with the people and personalities behind it all. Here is your host, Bill the Conqueror.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate y'all being here. You know that I have really come to find that the journey of collegiate esports is fantastic because it is building the grassroots foundation of this industry that we desperately need to move forward. And I have many friends who have worked in programs, started programs. If you remember the interview I did a couple weeks ago with Coach Hummel, I will put a link to that in the eye above my head right here. You can check out. But I have with me today another friend, Tavian Napier. We connected several years ago working for PayDayGG, and he went on to other opportunities, especially at Western Michigan University. And I wanted to get his perspective on what it's like in a program, having an arena, building that up, and get that whole story, because I think it's useful to get as many viewpoints as possible on this journey, because not every school handles everything the same way. I think in the interview with Coach Hummel, he landed in a couple spots where he was really fortunate to deal with an administration that was 100% on board. And I wanted to get a different perspective. How do some of these colleges view esports? But before we get too deep, you see the gentleman on the screen right there. He's a friend. We have gamed together many times, Destiny 2 and other platforms. But he also has his own podcast. He's an FGC. I guess you call it stud. I don't even know if I mean, I've seen you play some Street Fighter. You're pretty darn good, right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Anyways, you see right there, he is Tavian Napier. He is the philosopher. Thanks for making time for me today, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, so I briefly mentioned how we met. We both were working for PayDayGG several years ago. We've kind of branched off in different directions. So since you left PayDayGG, what'd you do?
I'm trying to think of the timeline, actually, because it's been a lot.
Okay. Well, so I believe PayDayGG split up kind of late 2018 going into 2019, I think, right?
Okay, yeah. Then that was probably right around the time I started working at Western then.
Yes.
Yeah, so I basically stopped doing a lot of content, and I got a job at Western. I guess just talk about how that even started, because
Yep.
that was basically happening while all of this was going on, like while the PayDayGG, I was doing that.
Right.
And so I was technically like not in between jobs. I was working a job I didn't really care about. Like it was just a day job, right? Just a factory working job. And while that was happening, I was also running a fighting game community out of a gaming lounge. Unfortunately closed down, but it was called Glitch Gaming Lounge.
Okay.
And that's where I basically started the Kalamazoo fighting game community, where we just meet weekly and play fighting games and run tournaments. Try to be positive towards each other, stuff like that. And around that time, I had come across like a clip of news or something that said that Western was having esports. So I contacted them and tried to find like who I could talk to, and I was like, hey, I just want to talk to you guys and learn about your program and introduce myself.
Right.
And met with Scott Puckett, who was one of the co-founders of the program. He wrote the proposal that basically birthed the esports program at Western.
Okay.
Met with him and just explained who I was, my skill set, what I'm interested in, and he, told me about the arena and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing came of it for a couple of months, and I just kept on working on my FGC.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, he stopped by the my fighting game community and just kind of introduced himself and then introduced one of his coworkers, and said that there might be a position opening. You should consider applying for it. If you get the chance, you should apply for it. We'd love to have you in our pool of people to apply. And so I did. Went through the interview process.
Right.
And then they chose me from a bunch of other people apparently, and so I was really excited about that position. And from there, it was a crazy ride, and I can go into more detail about that, but that's basically how I started working there.
Okay. So So that first conversation, or those first few conversations that you had with Scott, what'd you talk about?
What kind of program I would run if I got hired.
Right.
What is my experience in esports? And I have a pretty broad one from game design to commentary to competing to
Yep.
running tournaments at that point. So, I just talked about different various esports within the world of esports, League of Legends, some of the shooters, stuff like that. Breaking down, streaming experience and running an arena, stuff like that. And then from there, seeing the arena once I got hired, right? Once I was hired, I got to see the arena and kind of helping to do the grand opening of that arena and just basically learning how that whole entire building worked and like studying it and learning all the software and the hardware required to run the whole, like I basically know how to do everything in that arena, from like all the IT to the production, to lighting, the sound systems. I've studied like all of it and have that like drilled into my brain and just learned about all of that as well. So that's kind of what it was like. It was like learning the arena, but also learning how to run a tournament as well, like tournament organization, getting players in there. How do we get more college students? How do we make this interesting and engaging for the students? And then, I propose one of the biggest things is like, hey, one thing I think is really important is hands-on experience. I will admit I'm not the biggest promoter of college education right now. I think if colleges can offer hands-on education, that's way more valuable than a degree, in my opinion. Than this piece of paper that tells you can do something.
Thank God.
So
thank you for saying that. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and so like my whole goal was to do that in life. Like I want to create education that's like non-traditional but hands-on, and even if I have to partner with colleges to do that, if they're willing to get outside of their comfort zone and find a new way of like teaching these kids, and basically running an esports organization, esports arena, with mostly students to some extent, then they get the hands-on experience that's like once in a lifetime, and basically seeing that come to fruition to some degree, and seeing college students learn lighting, sound, production. We had volunteers as well. We even ran talked about summer camps and ran those summer camps and generated a lot of revenue from that.
Nice.
So it was a lot of like those early conversations turned into a lot of what we wound up doing.
See, and okay, so I really like that you said the hands-on experience part. I have said for the past couple years that the esports degrees, having an esports degree program is essentially worthless. It is a marketing tool by colleges to get students in the door. When you can just get you can get an English degree, you can get a communications degree, you can get a business degree, you could be in the theater department and be involved with the esports on campus, because like you said, there's definitely a production side that needs to happen, and people who are in theater understand production, understand lighting and sound and how things should look. And so I thank you for saying that, because I think, and I'm glad you think the same way, esports degrees are technically worthless, and it's the hands-on experience of how do you set up a tournament, how do you get people in the door, how do you run the tournament, how do you handle things after the fact, and doing that over and over again and running a team inside that whole crucible. And so I appreciate you saying that. So okay, so you had those conversations with Scott. He came and found you. You got the job. What was it like when you walked in that arena for the first time and you're like, it's done and we're actually going to do this?
Unreal,
Yeah.
It felt like a huge accomplishment for me, and it felt like solidifying that all the work that I had put into like where I was now, because I have a bachelor's degree in animation and game design, and decided that it wasn't for me. Like game design wasn't for me, but I still wanted to work in the game design industry, but also with personal development. So somehow stumbling into this job after doing like making content, because my one of the things that my boss wound up looking up, prior to being my boss, was what am I putting out on social media? And he saw my YouTube videos and saw what I was talking about and saw that I was talking about productive things, but also doing it in the gaming realm. And so like my content was 100% a factor in me getting hired during the interview process.
Wow.
So seeing a lot of that come to fruition and being like, I'm working at an arena
Wow.
at a university, like a pretty decent university. Like they have
Yeah.
a good amount of money.
Yeah.
They're not like Michigan State or U of M or MSU. Yeah. They're not either of them, but they're still pretty big. Like they're pretty well known and they have some really good programs. And so it was really awesome to see this $500,000 arena be responsible, like me be responsible for it. That was pretty nuts. And
Yeah.
it felt unreal.
Wow. That okay. So you get hired, and I'm sure that you had to go in and you had to talk to Scott's boss, right? He'd say, "Hi, my name's Tavian. I'll be in charge of this and this." So when you walk in and you're talking to Scott's boss, maybe it's the person that he gave the proposal to. Maybe it's somebody in that level, in that at that level of the school administration. When you had that conversation, what was that like?
So interestingly enough, and this kind of feeds a little bit into a rant I'll give later, is
Sure.
I never got a chance to meet the higher up of my boss. Like Scott was the highest
Really?
level person that I ever really met. I
Wow.
had like one interaction with the boss above him, and unfortunately that kind of is common in that kind of culture,
Okay.
I guess, where
Okay.
there isn't that flow of communication, right? So a little bit of backstory from then to now is that mainly just because of the pandemic, they wound up pulling my boss, my former boss, and then maybe I'll explain this, but like I got moved to a different department because they worked in IT for finance, so their main job was more important than helping out here.
Sure.
This is kind of like a side quest for them
Okay.
in terms of their job, like what they're getting paid to do. And then I got moved to the for-profit portion, so I had a new boss, and the same issue popped up there as well, where I didn't get that flow of communication. So it was mainly like the same person, same level as Scott, now being my new boss, but like not having that clarity in terms of like
Right.
what his boss's boss wanted and that kind of stuff.
Huh.
Now it's in a new hands and in a new department because
Right.
I got laid off during the pandemic. They hired me back now. And it's under a different department, which kind of makes sense. It's student athletics or student recreation center. So they're in charge of it now, and I think that's the best fit because it's like their job is specifically for students and student activities, like so clubs, which is the esports club,
Right.
activities like recreational activities like the esports arena. Like it makes sense why they would be the ones running it. So I'm pretty excited. And I've already had this conversation about like if I work there, I would really like to have that flow of communication with their boss, and they seem completely open to that. So, and I've worked with them in the past. They're a really good,
Right.
or not organization, but a good department for this specific task. So I'm pretty excited. They have a lot of learning because it kind of gets into like the boomer energy again, but like they're open to learning, which is the important part.
Good.
Which makes it really really exciting. Like you can hear it in my voice. I'm super excited about it.
Yes. So there's a really quick reference right there that I think that if you weren't paying attention, you missed. So you're saying when this program first started, it was actually, or were you saying when this program was first developed, it was actually part of the athletic department?
No, so
No,
it wasn't.
no. Okay.
Yeah. So the original people were Scott and Michael. They wrote the proposal
Right.
out of like 70 different proposals to like help bring new students in to the school and kind of be more engaging for
Okay.
community. They wrote that proposal, and they were basically the director and assistant the director and assistant director of the Office of Business and Finance and IT.
Okay.
So they have like a main job, and they just kind of wrote this proposal and sort of like, well, since you wrote it, you got to run it. And they did for a good bit. They're the ones that chose to hire me.
Okay.
Luckily, they don't seem to regret that. So I must have done a great job and left a good impression.
Good.
One of my bosses is still, I would consider a good friend of mine.
Good.
I very much look up to them. Very skilled person, has helped me out tons of times, and I try to help them out and hang out with them as well when I can. So it's been a good experience working with them. But for sure, it wasn't the right department to do it.
Okay.
Except for the IT part was very, very helpful in setting it up. So I think that their involvement was great because their technical knowledge, like with technology and setting up the hardware and software,
Yep.
has been like priceless compared to some of the other like IT people I've come across that don't know that arena as well.
Okay, so that right there, that last bit really gets into an area that I think collegiate esports needs to capitalize on, and it is taking what already exists at the university from a technological standpoint, from a production standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, and bringing that all together, because you could create the opportunity to have coursework directly involved with everything you do. So like from the IT side, setting up that arena properly, maintaining it properly. From the production side, whether it's the theater department or the journalism department, you get them in, and then I'm sure that your school has graphic design courses and marketing courses. You can really take all those pieces and fit them together, and you don't have to add cost to anything. It's actually a pretty low bar when it comes to a budgeting standpoint. You don't have to add new staff. You can just create these opportunities through coursework that the school already has, right?
Ooh, I got to touch on that real quick because I think we did some really awesome things.
Okay.
We tried a lot of stuff during the couple of years of the arena.
Right.
And like with business marketing, I think it was either sports marketing or business marketing where we actually had them come in and like they basically got credit for doing esports specific stuff with the arena. They also had like a marketing department basically do proposals for a overhaul of our website. So we had our very own specific like WMU esports website,
right?
And marketing, basically the students were like, hey, here are some proposals on how you can improve it, and we implemented a lot of those changes, and the students got credit for that, like
nice.
Making a presentation portfolio about like, not a portfolio, but whatever you call it, for like a proposal, a visual proposal of like how the website would look. A
pitch deck.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
They made videos out of it and everything. You know, we had the I can't remember. It's like basically the AV department. I can't remember the acronym for it, but they came through and did a lot of help with like audio, with video. They actually helped figure out how to get the subwoofers turned on for like the first year of the arena being open. Nobody could figure out how to get the subs to turn on, and they wound up helping with the audio mixer and getting the settings right. And so like once we had the bass turned on, oh man, so like the students helped fix up the arena, the students helped run the stream, so I taught them the software. We used vMix, and like they would get credit for it. So there was like different departments that we would utilize, and they would actually get credit, whether it be like volunteer work or maybe a more involved course or something like that within that major. It was really cool to again to get that hands-on experience. You know, it doesn't need to be a whole major, maybe a minor, like marketing with a minor in esports or something like that. But just having that hands-on experience of like, hey, this is what a typical job would be trying to do for your career, and actually like not just teaching them the basics, but not like trying to sell them a whole entire course on esports, because that's, I don't know if we're ready for that for colleges just yet. But just actually getting the experience and getting a grade for it is pretty cool. So I was really happy to see a lot of that stuff happen with the involvement of the arena over like different departments. Like there was no major ever made. They're still kind of working on like, you know, having a minor and stuff like that. But it was really nice to see that and have tons of different students get experience in those areas.
That's exactly what I want to hear. That's exactly how I think colleges should approach it. Is you already have the tools in place to do everything that you need. Every department can probably contribute something, whether it's the engineering, whether it's the engineering department being involved in how the arena is constructed, and marketing and IT, and there's so many things that already exist. It's having an esports club /org/team, whatever you want to call it, is a great way to get people involved with the hands-on practical things. Like you said, hands-on practical nature, and teach people what they need to go out in the real world. You don't need an esports degree, quote unquote. You just need the hands-on experience with the tools you already have. And that's fantastic. I'd love hearing that. Now, let's get into the conversations that of you personally. So you step into this job, you're like overwhelmed with the arena. You're like, holy crap, I got to pull all this together. So you so you have that first event in the arena, and maybe things go well, maybe things don't go well. I don't know that answer, but when you come out of that, and I'm sure that you sit down afterwards, you think about, okay, what did we do well, what did we do wrong? Sort of walk me through that first time when you start to finish, you're done, and then you sit down, quiet time, and you're thinking about what just happened.
Yeah. Running esports events is a very love-hate relationship for me.
Okay.
Like it's I I love the feeling of seeing people react to like what's happening on screen and the players and everyone like having a good time in the moment. But I feel like all of the build up leading up to it is just so stressful because I'm kind of a perfectionist.
Okay.
I'm also uh unorganized sometimes, so it's hard to be that kind of person who's like
Okay.
trying to wrangle students. It was a weird relationship where basically during events my multiple bosses became my employees essentially, and I would tell them what to do,
Wow.
and they would just help and volunteer, and
Okay.
it was a very interesting dynamic to have like my bosses and students basically running this esports organization and just like me microman not I'm not going to say micromanaging, but me li- uh, trying to let people do what they need to do, but also trying like I had headsets and stuff like that. It was like a live production, so I'm like talking to
Right.
people and like not necessarily yelling at them, but being I get like I'm usually pretty nice, pretty laid back, but during an event things have to be right.
Yes.
And when thing one thing about running esports that everyone needs to know, like whenever you're doing an esports production or anything like that, something is going to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The things that separate the good from the bad are the ones who figure out how to fix the issues, not how to like avoid all of them, because you're going to hit an issue and trying to work through it and just keep it rolling and learning from those mistakes so that you don't make them the next time.
Right.
Like that's basically running tournaments and doing production, and making sure that I keep everybody on track, making sure that I don't get so frustrated I can't do my job or anything like that. Not being too mean, but also not letting myself get distracted. Like during production, everything like you got to back to back to back to back to back. You have to keep people focused. You have to make sure
Mm-hmm.
no one's slacking off, because you miss one, like especially with production, like anything video wise, like you have to make sure the transitions are on point, because then you're staring at a options menu for like 5 minutes while the commentators are talking or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
You want to make sure the commentators are on camera, and so like that level of meticulousness was there for me, but also mostly these are volunteers
Yeah.
also, so I have to make sure I check my own expectations, but then also check my boss's expectations that I can't personally
Right.
talk to. So it just became like really like I love the process because it felt very rewarding and I was good at it.
Okay.
But it was also incredibly stressful.
Okay. And so from that time, I'm sure that you learned some lessons, maybe the easy way, maybe the hard way.
Yeah.
What were 3 lessons that you learned?
Hmm. I mean, the first one would definitely be the things are going to go wrong. It's just best to learn how to work through them.
Right.
Um, Let me think here. Yeah, there's so many different topics, but I learned about a lot about production specifically,
Okay.
and the more you clarify in terms of the process,
Mm-hmm.
the easier it's going to be, and then the easier it is to teach somebody else to do that. You don't
Okay.
necessarily have to have it all written down, but like you have to have some sort of process as simple as possible. You have to make it very, very simple. Make these tasks very simple,
Okay.
specifically for college esports, because like one person might be doing multiple jobs when normally during a high production level you'd have a lot of people doing simple jobs, and
Right.
so that I had kind of the inverse
Okay.
for a lot of that, and
Okay.
learning how to delegate would be, yeah, I guess the overarching topic of that one is like learning how to delegate and let things go so that
Okay.
other people can do it. Um, and then let me think about another one. I feel like there's a lot of lessons that I've learned. Try to be as organized as possible. Learning how
Right.
to get more organized. I'm not good at it yet, but I think that it helps a lot when I am.
Okay.
So learning and preparing are two things that are important to do, but I'm not the best at.
Interesting. Now, we can talk all day about the technical side. We can talk about, having your ducks in a row and understanding, who's up next and your timings. But in the end, it's about people. What did you learn about yourself, and what did you learn about dealing with the students?
I definitely knew I liked working with video games, and there's nothing wrong with an adult working in the world of video games. Like that
Right.
felt like something that's really important to clarify. I also realized that, for the first time in a while, I saw firsthand that these college students are the future, and every adult has an opportunity to help mold these people and get them ready for the future.
Okay.
And being able to finally do that, being in a position to where I could finally help students better themselves.
Okay.
And then seeing that these students still reach out to me and see how I'm doing now just because of how I impacted their life.
Right.
I feel very validated that my process, that for a lot of people seems weird, works and leaves a positive impact on a lot of these people who talk
Good.
about the lessons they've learned while working with me and appreciate my honesty, my bluntness, but like with the intention of saying or doing what, the best intentions for the individual, talking about any habits that might be not helpful to them, or a certain kind of mindset that a lot of adults might kind of dismiss or just tell them to like suck it up or something like that.
Right.
Actually, understanding and not judging them, but helping them work through those setbacks that we all have, while also teaching them something practical in the world of esports and helping,
Right.
the club and my student employees or volunteers. Like those are huge takeaways.
It's what it really sounds like to me is that you're kind of like a dad figure.
I guess I don't know how I became that way, but
Right.
yeah, yeah. I don't like being called a dad by like non-children, like not my children. But I mean,
Right.
I do conduct myself even at the Kalamazoo FGC. I do conduct myself that way.
And see that's something that I don't see very often from older people in the industry towards the people on the way up. There's a line between being in charge and being overly demanding, and I think that a lot of people, and we get into this later, when you talk about the boomer energy, it's that people my age were from the generation of, and this is a common theme at people my age, is just get over yourself, get over it, move on. And we've sort of evolved over time into, okay, I need to understand this first before I move on. And I'm willing to move on, but I need to understand it a little bit deeper. And so it's really fantastic that through the crucible of activity and like you said, the hands-on experience of doing this, and we're probably going to screw it up, but how do we fix the problem? If this happens, if this then that sort of concept. If this, then that. Okay, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. This is, and you just do that over and over again. And after a while, I'm sure after you're like your third show, your third event, maybe as you're moving forward, you're like, okay, same process as last time. Here's a couple changes. Here's your list. Go, right?
Mm-hmm. To some degree, but because we did multiple different games, the productions worked so differently. We kind of not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but we had that like we're doing something almost completely new, but we also have certain assets and like processes and things that we can do that we already know how to do. So it's a little of both, a little of new, a little of like practicing the stuff we've already learned.
Right. Okay, so you had the build up, you got hired, you had some events. I'm sure over time there was like a huge spike in excitement. You're like, oh, we're gonna have an Overwatch team, or we're gonna have a League of Legends team. Everyone's thrilled to death, yay! And then, of course, like every other thing, over time, after you've seen it and done it a couple times, the excitement sort of kind of wanes. It doesn't get any less intense, but it just the newness and the excitement wears off. So sort of talk about how that initial push happened, and then over time, what happened? Did it grow more? Did it kind of level off? Did it drop off? Did you see? Did you have fewer volunteers? Was there more excitement over time? Did you have good metrics on stream, things like that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Starting off in the beginning, I got hired in right when the arena was about to get open. So I got
Okay.
hired in October 1st. I think the arena opened on the 12th of October.
Wow.
So my main focus was just getting the arena up to speed so that we could open it up and do stuff with it. And my bosses were doing, I forget what you call it. But basically, they sit with a table at different parts in the school on campus,
Okay.
and they just promote the arena. So they were always like building excitement for it, and they kind of always had somebody doing that periodically, even after the arena opened. So we always maintained like marketing to some extent, even when we had like the marketing department from a different department that also worked with the arena.
Okay. Got it.
So I feel like there was always excitement, but there was always fighting that, keeping the students' attention and being where they are. So that was always an ongoing issue or ongoing challenge throughout the lifespan of the arena before the pandemic. We did like a grand opening, and that was really exciting. We had people in there. I think it sat like close to 100 or 200 people.
Wow.
It wasn't super big, but it wasn't tiny either. I want to say it was like 98 seats, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with 98.
Okay.
So it didn't have a huge space, but we also we tended to advertise fairly decently for certain things, but it was also just hard to get people to compete in it. We didn't, partly because of like pure red tape. We couldn't like, things had to go on the website a certain kind of way. So the websites that I'm used to using to register for tournaments, I couldn't really use those the same way.
Wow. Okay.
Which made it harder to get the students to register because of how they had to go about it from the websites and stuff like that. It was just a little bit too restrictive.
Okay.
But even still, we still got people to sign up for the various tournaments and stuff like that. The first actual tournament, I believe, was an Overwatch tournament.
Okay.
And we had we had one other school come through, and we did like a head-to-head.
Okay.
That's what it was. It was like a head-to-head tournament between another school, like a rivaling school close by, and did the production for that. And that was really cool. We got people excited for that. But it's just like, it's hard, I think, for the department that handled the marketing for that kind of stuff usually did marketing for like theater stuff on campus, but nothing like really gaming related. So it was really hard to reach out to that culture. Kind of going back to that boomer energy, was hard for that department and us to really get a good strategy consistently to like market towards them. We got better over time
Okay.
with less restrictions as well and more freedom on the website.
Good. Okay.
But yeah, I think that it was the numbers on stream. I feel like we're continuing to grow. Certain events that involve multiple colleges always had more because you had more colleges tuning in and people supporting their school.
Sure.
So definitely those, and then the Smash tournaments. Smash Bros is really popular around here, and
Wow.
that one was open to the public. Like that's the only tournament we ever did that was open to the public.
Okay.
And those were always a hit. We did 3 of those, and we always had like a good number of people, and then the viewers on the stream were really good. I know we definitely hit affiliate, and we're on our route to getting partner. Like we
Wow.
would have definitely, if we had consistent events, we would have hit partner.
Wow.
Our production was fairly decent for a college esports program.
Yeah.
I'm not one to toot my own horn, but I do think that it was pretty good for what we had to work with. And I was in charge of purchasing a lot of the assets after the fact, so commentary equipment, setting up the commentary booth, all that kind of stuff. Man, I could talk about the technical stuff all day, but I'm not going to.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
So
I hear you.
it was it wasn't easy, but we definitely had a lot of potential to get some big numbers. And we were definitely growing in terms of like our exposure and stuff like that. It's just a matter of like maintaining the consistency.
Right. So okay. So I believe earlier in this interview, you were talking about running summer camps and generating revenue from that. So in the position that you had, did you ever have access to the financial reports?
I would see some of it.
Okay.
They were really weird about that.
Okay.
And I guess understandably so. It's just like I don't think they like there were multiple departments involved in this, and then their bosses that I didn't get access to were also, kind of aware of this. So I was supposedly able to have access to it, but I just never got access from anybody. But
Okay.
sometimes we would talk about it in our marketing reports, and like specifically to the summer camps.
Okay.
We would talk about how much we spent versus how much we would make and stuff like that. But in terms of like the overall budget, I have seen, how much money has gone into it, and I was responsible for like ordering specific stuff, but I never got that like clear number of like what's my budget. It was always
Okay.
like, uh, a vague term rather than a specific number.
Okay.
Which,
Okay.
I don't fully understand the logic to that. It would always kind of, frustrate me because I would prefer the specifics so that I know what my range is, but that's just how it turned out at the time.
So you've mentioned several times in this interview about your bosses and not having access to them. Yet you've talked about how you've grown and gotten more access. Was there ever a point where you felt like that you got an impression from Scott that, hey, this is something we have to pull off. This is something that has to go well, because if it doesn't go well, there's a possibility we could lose this opportunity. It just seems like because you didn't have access to anybody above Scott. Basically, you couldn't get a vibe on what they actually thought about this. Because I've talked to several people who have worked in college esports, and it's like, well, we'll try it. Versus, you know what? Here's some money. We're behind you. Go. So, I mean, was there ever sort of a situation where Scott and you were kind of talking one-to-one, and he's like, look, this is what's going on with the people above me. They're happy about this. They're not too thrilled about that. Talk to me about that.
I won't go into specifics, but I will say,
Sure.
Scott had always been very candid with me.
Good.
As long as I had worked there, even when he wasn't like responsible for working with the esports department, he was always very like just straightforward about what he could share. Like he wouldn't share anything he couldn't share,
Right.
but if he could, then he would make sure to just hey, here's the report that I have. So that was always something that I greatly appreciated because I didn't get that as much when I switched to a different boss.
Okay. So you got hired. You did some events. You were there for a while, and then you got shut down because of COVID, you got shut down because of COVID. Then got hired back in a different department. Have you ever felt like you wanted to go back to it?
Yeah. I think, and I've talked to them about this already, but this is one of the most fulfilling jobs I've had. Because
Wow.
it kind of scratches a lot of itches, I get to work with students and help them and coach them. I get to work with video games. I get to work with something competitive, and it's competitive video games. And at the time it was like great benefits and great pay. So
Yeah.
I was like, it was something that I could do that I loved, that I was good at, while also making a living doing that. Because a couple of things to circle back to what you were saying earlier about
Right.
like the stress of whether this will go away. I can say that there was a specific number that there would be an evaluation of whether or not this is worth keeping.
Okay.
And that
Yeah.
definitely stressed me out. And then you add to the fact that the same time frame of getting this job, I quit making content, so I wasn't like the viability of making money on my own outside of this job was less likely because I wasn't marketing my own coaching services, because before then I was also like freelance coaching on the side, but this took up most of my hours.
Okay.
I had just bought a house, so now I had to worry about the responsibilities of owning a house.
Right.
And I just had a son, where I was expecting a son in 2 months, who I had in December.
Right.
And also have like commentary obligations to travel and do commentary here and there.
Wow.
It was a lot going on for me at the time, but like, so all of that happening throughout that life frame, like I got more and more stressed about like, what if this isn't right? Because again, I'm a perfectionist, and I
Yep.
don't have that communication with like, I don't have that validation that I'm doing a good job.
Right.
I don't like, I'll say the term imposter syndrome. Like when people say you're doing a good job and they say it too many times, you stop believing it after a while, and you start to wonder if they're being honest or if they're just like saying what you want to hear.
Right. Right.
And because I can't talk to the boss and look at them in the face and get that reaction, I don't have that validation. So it got more and more stressful as like the years went on. I guess like the couple of years, year and a half, 2.5 years went on.
Right.
Just that got more stressful as that date started getting closer and closer and closer.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that all definitely did like stress me out, and like had to kind of push through a lot of that.
Well, I got to say, I mean, you've spent 2.5 years, starting this program from scratch, and you're moving it up. It seems like it's still going. I was looking at the website, looking at the website a couple nights ago, getting ready for this interview, and it seems like it's still going, and it seems like it's doing okay. So has this opportunity, has it put you in front of other people in such a fashion that you have more opportunities now?
Yeah. So after I got laid off during the pandemic,
Right.
I still had to find a way to make money. When I first got laid off, I had to utilize unemployment, just to make sure that I could pay all my bills and stuff like that. But I also started working on my business again. So I started, doing regular life coaching with clients, and then I started getting reached out to by after-school programs, and
Nice.
and then also other schools. So I have 3 different colleges right now. One is a college. I'm a coach for a Rocket League team at Albion College, and then there's 2 after-school programs: Concord Education and Campfire. Which one's like a for-profit, one's a non-profit. But I coach Rocket League, and I also do the like stream production for them. I started off as a coach, but then I kept like giving them advice for their stream production. They were like, "Hey, would you like to help us?" And I was like, "Here, let me just show you what it's supposed to look like." And they're like, "Hey, would you want to get paid for this?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" I mean, streaming video games, all right, I'll get paid to do that.
Well, okay. I mean, if you're gonna force me, right?
Right. Well, if you're gonna pull my leg,
Fine.
yeah.
You're gonna pay me to be here,
And then one's like, an after school program where I basically am just like a mentor playing video games with kids, and kind of talking about certain topics and helping them work it through it,
Right.
Helping them work through some of these tough things. And some of these kids, they're less fortunate. I know one little girl who's like less than 10 years old who lost her aunt to COVID, and then she's taking care of her aunt's kids, her nieces and her cousins basically, and she's that young while also taking care of younger kids.
Wow.
There's just different kids with different stories, and
Yeah.
helping them to talk about some of these topics in a productive way while also being in a medium that they're used to, video games. Like talking while our avatars are looking at each other playing like Minecraft or stuff like that.
Right.
For a lot of people who don't play games, that doesn't make sense, but there's an odd like bonding. There's a level of trust that you have when you play like cooperative games or competitive games with people, and like talking through your avatar. I think it's kind of like back in the day, the therapist talking to a puppet, talking through the rather than talking to the therapist kind of thing. There's, for some people, a sense of comfort of talking to an avatar rather than talking to a face, because it just causes too much anxiety. My generation and older generations would be like, "You're weak, you get over it."
Right.
But if you meet them where they are, eventually they can get over it, but not just by telling them that.
Right.
That's also a really cool program that I get to do and talk about, and with other faculty, the other staff, making not content, but making programs for them.
Wow. See, and that right there, that speaks to something I have always said: gaming brings people hope. It brings people together. My personal gaming story, what got me going was the fact that my son told me, "Hey, Dad, you should play Destiny 2. It's free right now." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And the minute he said, "And I'll play with you," oh, I signed up. I'm like, I'm there. I am all there, my guy. And gaming brings us together. It's a bridge across generations. It's a bridge to a better understanding, because you have the common experience. You can share. I mean, I would wager when you talk to that girl and you're playing Minecraft together, what you're talking about, the mechanics in the game. You're talking about, why you build things a certain way and the right tools and crafting. And then that leads into the conversation of, dealing with the loss of, being under 10 and losing an important adult in your life, and being responsible for so much at such a young age. I love those stories because, you know, it brings people together. Gaming doesn't have to be competitive to be useful. It's a great way to form connections. And so your story is fantastic. I definitely want to have you back at some point because I think there is a lot more to explore. We need to take some more time blocked out, but definitely there is some more to unpack here. So if people want to get in contact with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. That's probably the easiest way to like reach out to me in DMs. It's just the philosopher. It's spelled weird. It's like Philo Cipher, but philosopher. It's, you know, it's marketing. It's easier to find me that way. You look me up. Other than that, I have content on YouTube spelled the same way, and then I also have a podcast called FGC Philosophy, where I basically talk about a lot of these topics. I've had some professionals on there, players, commentators, personalities, business owners, tournament organizers, all kinds of different people, friends. So yeah, check out that. If you like the kind of content, personal development and gaming related stuff, pretty cool. Facebook, Tavian Napier as well. Pretty easy to find me on there. I don't have Facebook on my phone. I'm getting away from social media a little bit more, unless it's for like specifically content and just like, connection. But yeah, that's how you find me.
Perfect. And you see right there on the overlay, the @thephilosopher on the bottom right there. That is his Twitter handle. Feel free to connect with him right there on Twitter. Tavian, thanks for making time for me today, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to end this regular episode. Please do like, share, subscribe. All the good stuff for the YouTube channel. We're going to end the regular episode. Drop over to the audio-only GBIRL Raw, which you will love because it's raw and unscripted, and we swear at each other and we rant. But we're going to end this right here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you for tuning in today. You can find links to everyone on the show in the description below. Check out Bill the Conqueror on Twitch and Twitter to stay up to date on his thoughts and ideas about gaming culture.